Thank you so much for this study. And we can't go over these things enough. Just those little exchanges between Seleucus and Cassander and Lysimachus and Ptolemy and each one of those things. And even in our own experience in our lives, Brother Phiri. This is not a recording now, I'm just talking.
Yes.
Yes, so thank you so very much. I mean, I grew up with a mother that came from a Protestant background, and I remember I used to ask her about Catholics, and she used to say Catholics have very big families because they feel like God told them to have a lot of children. It's the reasoning, or they eat fish on Friday, or they go to church and they confess, and I was trying to understand these things when I was a child. And then I went to church with a friend of mine and she went to confession, and it just boggles our mind to think that people are still confessing to a man. It's so dangerous. It's so evil. And it is so contrary to God's will, because I think the greatest freedom that we have is that if we feel alone in our thoughts and that no one understands, we know that we have Christ to whom we can talk and reason it all out with. And it's so beautiful and so powerful.
Yeah, very true, very true. So you see, this is why we see that for Christ to say, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free," he knows what he was talking about. And then he says, this truth is more like a sword, because like you have mentioned, that there are those that have been confessing. They think that is, to them, they feel happy that they have spoken to God, they feel like they have taken their sins to God, and the next thing is forgiveness. When God is saying that the system and that institution did not originate with him, it originated through deceit, So to us, God is speaking the other thing. To those who are Catholics and are following that, they feel that that is the best and most accurate way of talking to God,
And, I can remember, and even to this day, friends of mine who were Catholic growing up and so on, that the girls, I've had these conversations more with female friends. It's like, well, I didn't know that I'd done anything wrong, so I just made things up so that I could get through it. Imagine that, making up things for confession. And imagine the girls all around the world that were just, I answered my mother, meanly, or I stepped on my brother's foot, or just things that children will think of telling, the priest. And then, of course, the dangers of putting children into that relationship with a priest. Yeah.
Yeah, for me,
so much evil.
Yeah, so for me, Sister Ka, I can relate, because I was a Catholic myself. I think I've told you this, right?
You told me that you were brought up Catholic, of course, and that your mother was
Yes.
Catholic, and it wasn't something where she was going to be changing. And even your grandmother, the one that I came to know through her pictures and so on, it was in her mind to be buried a Catholic funeral, and that her daughters would think that's the right thing. Yeah.
Me, I can say that almost, maybe with the exception of my two uncles, those ones I never saw them go to any church seriously. And then the mother to the brother we were just burying 2 weeks ago, Brother Nathan, he too, his mother, I never saw her to be a serious church member. I don't even remember her going to any church. If at all she went, yeah, maybe she did, but I have no knowledge of that. But the rest, my grandmother, her young sister, that is the young sister to my grandmother, my mother, the one who died last of the last one to die of the 7 siblings of my grandmother. she was buried Catholic. Is it third born child? He
Hmm.
died. He was buried Catholic. So my mother died in 2001. She was buried a Catholic. Okay. So all I can say
That
is,
was when we were just getting to know you. Hmm.
no, 2001.
Oh, I thought it was one. Somebody had said, okay, so Brother Kaliba said your mother, but maybe that's a different kind of relationship because you all
Yes,
call
maybe
you.
he was talking of the
Oh,
one, yeah, the one that died recently. Yes. The last one, the last one to die. Yeah, that one was the young sister to my mom. She was also Catholic. Okay, so what happened to me was I did those what do they call them?
confession.
Stu no, studies to get baptized,
Oh,
because we had
catechism.
the
Catechism.
catechism. Yes. We had the uh is it the first, there was part one, then part two. Oh, sorry, there was part one and half, then part two, then part three.
Is
So
that like
when
around 12 years old?
no, I was younger than that, I think. But yeah,
Oh,
there were those that were slightly younger than that. But if you were younger than 12 and also 15, you wouldn't be baptized. You would be accompanying those, and you will be like more like learning in advance, because what will
okay.
used to happen is the younger ones would go into what was sometimes they call it part zero, where there was it didn't have anything. You would just recite those catechism things and stuff like that. Then there will come a selection, those now who go to part one. So part one,
Okay.
yes, you learn everything. Then again, there will be another selection. So you can be in part zero for as long as you are not selected to go into the other class.
Oh,
Then
okay.
from part zero you go to part one.
Some
I,
stay non promoted or
yes.
through lack of interest are
No,
perfectly
but
comfortable.
that was like maybe I don't know whether they were looking at age also, the way
Hmm.
you were able to respond to those questions. Yeah. So
Wow.
yeah, from there you move to part one. Then you go to part one and a half, which was the third stage. Then from part one and a half you go to part two. So part
Oh, that's
two,
so complicated.
yes, but the funny part is you are learning the same things.
Oh, each time.
Yes, there's no difference, like where you are. If you are in grade one, you are doing a different subject, then it upgrades in grade two. No. You are reciting the same book. So it's like actually we were singing it. Yeah, because me, I knew it from the first question to the last one. And the funny part is we are doing it in the local language. Yeah, so I knew it. I knew that catechism from the first. Even when you talk of the question, like we are saying that who changed the law, we are saying Ecclesia Catholica changed. By whose authority? Oh, God delegated the authority to the church to change the law.
Oh,
We were reciting those. I
you
didn't.
actually recited words like that?
Yes, I don't know if they still use the
Oh,
same catechism that we are using.
oh,
The years that
interesting.
I'm talking about, that is
So it's
between,
embedded in the child's mind that
yes,
God
yes,
did this and that.
yes,
Oh,
and it says the Ecclesia Catholic had the power to change,
yeah,
and they will even go to the extent of saying that what we bind on earth is bound in heaven. So
that's
those things.
interesting that that was instilled so young and is still being instilled.
Yeah, because
Hmm.
I don't know if they have changed or it is still the same. So what we were using in the 80s was like that. So we knew that the church had authority to change. the commandments of God. We knew, but because we were taught like that, it was
Hmm.
embedded in us. So when I reached the last stage, what happened was we were told to say, okay, the following Sunday we are supposed to be it's Sabbath. Yeah, the following Saturday we are supposed to be baptized. So on a was it on a Thursday or on a Friday? I'm not so sure. Yes, on a Friday. We were told to say, no, you are going to do confessions. I'd never done any confession before.
Oh, never. Oh, and
No,
it's okay. I'm guessing you're about 6, 7, 8 years old now.
no, 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 no. I think in 1986 I was somewhere 14. I was 14. I was
Oh,
old.
okay.
Yes, I was old. I was old. Yeah. So uh, when now we were told to say you are going for confession, we did not understand. So I asked the one who was teaching us. Said, no, he said the exact one. What has reminded me of all this is what you have just said about the sisters. I said, what is it that I'm going to confess? I don't know what to confess. So I was like, no. When you get there, you just say, okay, if you just say maybe I stole 5 times or I lied so many times. What
Oh,
he just told us what to go and say. So I went before I went before this priest called Father Angel. He was an Italian man, but he knew the local language. He used to speak Chewa like the one that the Easterners would speak, more than the one that we speak in Lusaka.
mm,
But he was Italian.
mm.
Yes, when he went to because he went also to the Copper Belt, he used to speak Bemba, better Bemba, except his Italian accent would just betray him. You can tell that what he was saying, he would speak the correct words, but the way he would speak, like for instance, if he would say. Like for me, I can say Nyanja to say, yeah, Sopano, Dino, like Dino was like the cyclists that were doing some games. They used to bring cyclists, motor racing, everything, and different, even football. He used to bring different players from different places. So he would say,
Mm.
Dino is Ayamba. Now, him, the way he would speak would be Soprano Dino Uzayamba, where he's betrayed by the accent. Yes, but we used to
Mhm.
get what he was saying. Mm. Or even when the mother, like me, I stopped going to church, then he used to beat the parents to say, go and bring your children. You know that.
He used
So,
to come and tell the parents to bring the children.
to beat them,
What do you
like,
mean beat with them? Like with a belt, with a stick?
yes, yes,
Beat the
whipping, whipping.
parents?
Yes, it's like I
You
don't see
saw
yourself.
this when you were growing?
Yes, yes, but my mother was
Oh.
never. But what was surprising is when I told my mom in 1988 that I'll never go to church until I'm independent. He, she never came home and reported to say the father is saying you are missing at church, and the children were literally dragged by their parents to say the father has beaten me so many times over you. Now I'm taking you, and when you are taken, you are beaten by the same father again to say you should stop, you should continue coming to church. So it was interesting. Me, I saw that with my eyes, and many people, and even now I have friends that are Catholics that we were together in those years. Some are still Catholics, the others have gone into Pentecostal, others have gone into drinking. So most of them, those that were in my intake, most of them are confused. They drink, they smoke. Yeah, they don't even go to church. Yeah, I don't know what.
There's some very dark things that come out of that. My friend
Yes,
Sally, whom I introduced you to, and she had donated a little bit toward the printing, and then she passed
yes,
away.
I remember that one.
And
Yes,
yeah, she was brought up Catholic, and she did not have good things to say about it. It had confused her. And Marie is it's probably the one thing that's stopping her from understanding the rod, even though she had a great love for Brother Don and things like that. But she just she had been beaten. She had every day the nuns. She'd gone to
Mm-hmm.
school with nuns, and they had beaten her. And her mother was Catholic. Maria's family is Italian, and her mother had all these icons around the house, and the house was burning down. And she begged her daughter to go in and save the icons.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really.
Yeah, do you know that I have my sister. She's Catholic. She's even here in Lusaka now. Most of her time she was in Kasama. She was much older than me, very much old. And
Mm.
she joined when she was very young. Up to this time, she's still in that system. Yeah, so when I tell you that my family was Catholic, so for me, I strongly believe that it is just God who stopped everything. So when my turn came to go before this father now to confess my sins, and the funny part is that young brother of mine who follows right after me, the one in Indola, we are victims of the same thing. We both never got baptized in the Catholic Church, despite the efforts that we made. So we went before this father.
Was this
We
to be
were,
baptism and sprinkling or immersion?
it was a sprinkling, but we never got baptized even. Me, I never got baptized. So that
Oh, okay. I
confessional
mean, you
thing,
never even got the sprinkling. Yeah. Okay. Get
no,
it. Yeah.
I
No, no, no.
failed
I got the sprinkling before I was 1 year old. So I
oh,
only know,
I was lucky that that thing never happened to me.
but it was
So,
Episcopalian. Yeah.
mm. So when I went before this father now, that was my first attempt. Like tomorrow there will be baptism. Now,
Uh-huh.
like today, Friday. So I told say no, everyone of you should go. Confession they call it chirapiro in our Nyanja setting. So you go before the priest to confess. So
Sorry, it's hard to hear you.
oh, I was saying, well, we
Oh,
used now you are able to.
yes. I think maybe your head was turned away or just your hand was over the speaker or something.
I
Yeah.
was a bit far from the laptop. Yeah, so sorry for that.
Okay. It's
Yeah,
okay.
so it was our turn now to go. We went. We are more than 30 of us. So
Oh.
we were going one by one before the father. So everyone else is the car. They spoke to the father. He never said anything. But when I went, and when I consulted my friends, the things that I had said, for me, it became bitter. You know what? I said, Father, forgive me for I sinned. What did you do, my son? No, I stole 3 times. Then says, you, from the time you were born, can you steal 3 times? I was like, no, yeah, you said that we are training to confess. They said, no, you are not serious. Go back. So that's how he turned me away. And my brother,
In
the
other
three
words,
of us,
he knew that you were not a thief, and so he just told you to
I don't
leave.
know. Just guy, what made me to remember is what your the other sisters you mentioned to say. All they did was they were just making up things to say before the father. So
Right.
so I went back to my teacher. I said, "You see what has happened." So even him was confused. The father chased you away. I said, yes, he chased me away. And I saw my brother also coming, and the other one say, we've been chased. So about the four of us were told to say, no, so you're not getting baptized tomorrow. You go back to class. I was shocked. I cried because I really wanted to get baptized. I used to admire those mass savers, the way when they are dressed, the father is
Right.
lifting the Eucharist, is doing, you sound those bells, you carry the candles. When you are young, we used to admire those
Oh,
things.
I remember my brother was the one that carried the cross, coming right down the
Yeah, even
aisle with the
us.
singing.
We,
Yeah.
we, we, we really, Sister Car, I'm telling you, at that time I was desirous of that thing. I wanted it very much. And the only thing that was blocking me was baptism. So I thought that now, it was chasing me away from something that I desired. So because I loved that one, I said, okay, fine. let my friends be baptized. And your friends get baptized, then they laugh at you. You are back again studying. I said, yeah. I went back again, I think after 3 months again. All that was happening now in 1988. The second opportunity.
88.
Mhm. In
Wow.
1988, I was a Catholic. So I said, okay, no problem. I went back to the same party 3 class. I did things. Now, this time I was ready for baptism. This time, he just told us to say, uh, on Thursday, 16 hours, all of you come with your parents. My father never used to go to church. So my mom
Right.
said, no, talk to your father so that you go with your father. So I asked my father. So he said, okay, you come. He used to be found in Kamwala Market. That's where he was doing his tailoring from. So he told me to say, you come and pick me. Imagine I walked from home going to Kamwala. I found him busy with his lot of things that he was suing for customers. He said, no, let me just finish this, then we are going. I looked at his watch. It was almost 16 hours. By the time we were boarding a bus, it was already 16 hours. And I knew that father was strict. So when we got at church with my brother and a few other friends, he just made an announcement. The door is closed. All of you that are outside, no baptism. I looked at my father and I was beat. I said, going to church was close by. Him was in town. Instead of him just boarding a bus, coming in time and we go to church, he made me walk the distance to town, wait for him, then he go to the church. We find the church closed and we told no baptism. You go back. I almost hated my father to say again. Last time it was that. Now this time it is my father. I don't know what I will do to Sister Car. So
Oh
again,
dear.
I had to go for another 3 months of
But your
going back
mother
to.
was the one that made said you had to have your father do it. That was weird.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
that
the
was a little
third
bit.
time,
Yeah.
the third was an eye opener, and it was the last attempt that I ever made, and I never went back to any classes after that. That one. When to be baptized, them you have to wear that white gown.
Sure.
Yeah. So I had a friend whom I did those things with. Those who are even baptized the first time when they attempted. So he told me that don't worry about that one. I told my mom to buy one for me. They said we don't have money, and for sure things were tough and hard for our family that they couldn't afford the white material just to prepare a gown for
Mm.
me. So I went to that friend of mine. He agreed to say, no, I'll give you. So on the fateful day that I should get it, I went to his place. He was not there. Yeah, sister. I think for me, God did not make it that I should be baptized in the what is
Exactly.
the Roman
How
Catholic Church.
interesting.
Yes. So what happened in 1989? I was washing clothes, school uniforms.
Mm.
It was on a Sunday. No, it was it. It was on a Sunday. As I was washing my clothes, I literally say that God spoke to me directly, not that somebody spoke to me. I was alone, and then I heard a voice saying, "You should start going to church on Saturday." I turned Sister Car. I didn't see anyone. So I
Oh.
went into the house. We were staying in a two-roomed house. I went in the house. I found my mom. I said, Mom, and Sister Kai, I want to be honest with you. At that time, I didn't know that there is SDA. For me, the only church I knew was Catholic. I would see these other churches, but I never paid attention. I could see the SDAs, but I didn't know that they were even called SDA. I literally had no idea who they were, to be honest. And that was somewhere I should be 15 or so. So uh, no, no, that time I was 17. Yeah, I was 17. So I was washing clothes because I had qualified. I was in the junior secondary school. So I went to mom. I said, a voice told me that I should go to the Seventh Day Adventist because the name. And imagine, Sister Car, I had never known Seventh Day Adventist, right? And the name I heard that I should go to the Seventh Day Church. So I went to mom and said, mom, the voice told me that I should join the Seventh Day Adventist Church. Mom said, if you join this church, you leave this home. So out of
Oh, really?
yes. So at 17, Sister Car, I told my mom, point blank, because 1988 I failed to get baptized. 1989 I heard that voice. I told mom to say, I'll never go to church until I'm independent. That was the day I stopped going to church. 1989 I never went to any church. 1990 I never went to any church. 1991 when I went to senior secondary school, that's how I was selected to a boarding school from Kablonga Boys in Lusaka to Hillcrest Technical Secondary School in Livingstone. So I joined SDA
Oh.
at a boarding school. So
You
when
went to a boarding school that was Seventh Day Adventist, but you didn't plan that, but it was just by a qualification of
yeah
a
that
higher level, or
yes I did very well at grade 9 level. I got higher marks and I
so you
was
got the
taken to
scholarship to go to the boarding school in
it wasn't
Livingston?
a school. They were not even giving scholarship. It was all on our parents. What they were doing is Hillcrest Technical Secondary School, even up to this day, though the levels and the standards have gone down, was meant for the bright students, the whole of Zambia. So when I got there, I found students from Chipata, from Kitwe, from Serenje, all over Zambia, those who did well. So they were all taken to that technical school. Now, for me, I was doing commercial subjects, like I was taking office practice and bookkeeping, which is commerce, the junior part of commerce and the accounts. So at Hillcrest, those studies were not there. So instead, I was given additional mathematics, geography, and history as the options. Then added to that, there was ordinary mathematics, chemistry, biology, English, yeah, and the others until you had 8 subjects in total. So we were taken because of the high marks I got, uh, because there were subjects that I got 90%. Yeah.
Wow.
Yes. 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 So that's how we were taken to Hillcrest Technical Secondary School. So in Livingstone, I started going to now, at the boarding school, what they had was the youth forum, or where Seventh Day Adventist youths would give ourselves time. Oh, you are going to pray. You are going to do what? So I used to tell them that no, I want to learn. They were saying, no, that's how you learn, by being incorporated. So they would come with those coteries, they would be teaching. So now, everything was out of tune because it was for the first time that I'm seeing people talking about the Bible. I never knew verses from the Bible except those that were in the catechism.
Oh, fascinating.
Even when I was asked to pray, I used to struggle because the prayer that I had was the Lord's Prayer. Many a time the Lord's Prayer, yeah,
Just the repeat, yeah.
yes, the repeat of those things because we were not that
That's
time.
all
There
we
was no
had. Yeah.
that time there was no opportunity for you to pray the way you want and stuff like that. So,
So you don't know, you're almost frightened when somebody asks you. Yeah.
yeah. So I used to tell because when Nandi, do you know what used to happen now? I was timing when it was time that I knew that around this time they would be telling who is going to open the prayer, who is going to do that. I would be at the dome, until I know that I think now that time of dividing who do what has passed. Then I will sneak in. They will just say, you are coming late. What? I will just keep quiet because they didn't know that what I was fearing was one, I wouldn't stand before people to speak anything. I was kind of shy. Two, I had a Catholic background where people, when they are quoting from the Bible, I didn't know what the Bible was. I don't know what the Catholics were doing at that time. I don't know if that is the trend that is there now or they have changed. I don't know. So we had no time with the Bible. We didn't even know what the Bible says. So, interestingly, I started learning bit by bit with what they are doing. I was listening to how they were praying, and I started adapting. So,
Mm.
we closed the schools because we asked the first term we never went into school. The results were delayed. So, when we went there, we closed. I came home. Then mom, no, by that time she still loved to wash clothes for us. She asked me, it was on a Friday. I said, no, I want to wash clothes. I'll be going to church tomorrow. She just said, so you were serious? I said, yes, because she saw me 3 solid years of not going to church, and I was very young. I never went to church. And now I come in 1991 from school. I tell her that, no, washing clothes. I want to go to school. She said, "Oh, let me wash for you." So she washed for me. I ironed them. Then I went to a Seventh-day Adventist church nearby. I found that
Mm.
the way we were worshiping at a youth forum was also different. I didn't know that when you go to for the what when the Sabbath starts, I didn't know all that. And so people are now asking me, oh, where are you from? I said, oh, you Christ, what? Oh, okay, that's cool. Okay. Yeah, okay, you are SDA. Yes, I'm SDA. Oh, okay. So they see me come at 10 hours, sometimes 11 hours. Then they started asking me, so, you know, what kind of an SDA are you who come at 11 hours? You see, there's Sabbath school, there's what? So when I would come, everything now was more like out of place. Everything was new. I was like, even at school now, it was even much better and simpler. But here things are tough. So when we go for main service, after main service, I would go home and never return to church. Then they will start asking me, there's Bible study, where do you go? So I didn't know what I didn't know what they are trying to tell me. So one Sabbath with my friend, we went to church. Then afternoon there was the same, like they organized Catholic football games on the Saturday. Yeah, it was they invited those players. Some were playing in the national team, but brought to play in the shanty compounds, dirty games like. But they brought bigger names. So we went with my friend to watch that football. So those that saw us, they were like, and you know where you are even in a necktie, and then they say, you're watching football. This one we were at church. These two were together at church. Then I was like, so what? We worship together. No. You are breaking the Sabbath. So now I was confused. Breaking the
How
Sabbath.
interesting, because you're coming from the Catholic where
I
nobody
didn't have an
understands.
idea. I didn't have
and
idea
and,
what.
and that, but they're really wanting you to get down to brass tacks fast, wanting you to get
Yes.
to be keeping the Sabbath. They're not rigid. They're just telling you like this is what it is.
Yeah. So they were just saying those things, but the person they were telling, where somebody confidently comes and says, "But you are breaking the Sabbath," and you don't even know what the Sabbath is. But you go to church on Saturday. You don't know what the Sabbath is. I was in that world. So what
Right.
happened? So we opened the schools. I went because we were just staying about a month. So those were just about 4 Sabbaths that I was here. We went back to school.
Oh,
So when we got to
interesting.
school, uh, the Livingston by then there was just Livingston Central. That was the mother church. So what we used to do was one Sabbath in a month all youths go to the Central Church, but the remaining 3 you will be doing everything through the youth forum. So this Sabbath we are seated. Then our coordinator said, how many of us are baptized? So they raised their hands. Then he asked me, you? I said, no, I'm not baptized. Why? I said, I want to learn. Says, no, you can get baptized and be able to learn. I said, no, but I don't know anything. No, 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 no. You at least last term you were struggling, but now you have improved, because he saw that I was catching up, with the little that I was learning from them, and with the little that I learned at school. I mean, at church when we had closed schools. So they took us they said, next week we are going to Livingston Central. So those that are not baptized, we are taking your names and recommending them to the pastor for baptism. So what happened again? The Catholic style came in, Sister Kerr. So we went to Central Church. So the pastor was seated on a chair. Then there was a big rock where the candidates were sitting. One by one, we were seated just before the pastor. So the pastor, I think he had two questions for all of us. The first question, I don't know the others, but for me, the first question was, what is tithe? I had never heard of that word, Sister Kerr. Tithe.
And you're already sitting in the baptismal
Yes.
candidate section.
So he asked me,
Oh
say,
my.
you don't know what tithe is? I said, no, Pastor, I don't know. But why do you want to get baptized? I
No.
didn't want to get baptized. I said I want to study
Now
before I
all
get
this is
baptized.
before the whole congregation. They hear all this conversation, or
No, we are
oh,
just the two of us.
oh,
The congregation was not involved. You are like the way we will go for confession to a priest, you are alone.
okay,
So
I
that day
see.
we are going one by one to be asked questions by the pastor, because the pastor wanted to see if we are ready to be baptized. So his first question to me was, what is tithe? I said, I don't know what tithe is. And he says, you have never heard of tithe? I said, no, I've never heard of it. Then he says, but why do you want to get baptized if you don't even know what tithe is? I said, I'm from the school. Because we used to put on the school uniform whenever we are going out of bounds. So I was in
Right.
school uniform. I said, me, I just joined the church last term. Now, my youth forum leader said that I should get baptized, then I should be taught. He says, no, we don't do that. Okay. Then he says, okay, I see you have a determination to get baptized. What is the fourth commandment? I did the Catholic work. I had memorized everything. I just said, honor thy father and thy mother. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The pastor stood up and he laughed and he sat on his chair. Everyone was surprised because the other candidates were seated somewhere else. Says, my brother, are you from the Catholic? I said, yes, yes, pastor. At that commandment you have said, number 4, I ask you to go to that was my eye opener again. He said,
Oh
that
my,
commandment you have
yes.
said is the Catholic version. The Bible version is in Exodus chapter 20. So you go and read Exodus chapter 20, verse 8 to 11. You will find, but you can read all the commandments of God as the Bible is. What you have said, it is the version of the Catholic. I was, what? So there's the commandments for the Catholics and the commandments for the church. He says, yes. I said, oh, Pastor, I didn't
Oh,
know.
that's nice. Isn't
That
that
was in
nice?
1991. So
91.
yes.
Wow.
So when I came for holiday, I would go to the baptism class. I come back to school. There was youth forum. Then there was no baptism class. So 1993, I completed school. I came specific. Now I was in the compound. So the elder who was at the baptism class at our church, Chawama Men, he was saying, you have been on this baptism class for over 3 years. Your friends, they are here for 3 months and they get baptized. Why? Then I told him, so no, normally I used to come here for 1 month, then I go 3 months to school. He was, oh, okay, okay. So, so this 1994, you should be baptized. I said, nah, no, elder. I refused. Why are you refusing? I said, I was embarrassed once. Now, I want to know the doctrine of the SDA church. So that's when I now began to understand when the Sabbath starts, everything. So I was studying slowly but surely. So what that teacher now did was, I learned the first 3 months. My friends went and got baptized. Me, I refused. I said, I want to understand. So now I became a teacher of the Sabbath class for the baptism class, when my teacher was not around, he would leave my manual of Bible doctrines to me. So, Sister Kerr, that's where now I followed everything and understand it, because that book is creation to redemption, and the subjects in between, like the state of the dead. I read everything from that, and I was now, that is what that book helped me now to read the Bible, because I would get the quote, go to the Bible, compare, I said, oh, so the dead know not anything. But at the Catholic, you know what they were teaching us. Contrary to all those things, there was time to pray for the dead, that they move from, if they are in hell, they move to purgatory. I tried to take purgatory in the Bible. There is no purgatory in the Bible. I was like, these churches are different. So that's how I was struggling. 1994 ended, I was still at baptism class. 1995, I was at baptism class. My teacher that time just came and said, no, 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 no.
No, no, no.
You are going. Go and get baptized. So that I was forced to get baptized in 1995. I was baptized by Pastor Kambaki. And that's how I was baptized. Wow. When I went now to the adult class, they said, oh, those that have been baptized, now you go to the adult class. I went there, I found they were just arguing and whatever. So I went back to my that baptism class teacher. I said, you, do you see what those guys are doing there? They're just arguing. And when you look at what they are studying, cannot be compared to this book. I was holding the manual of Bible doctrine. Say, look, here we are talking of, when you talk of creation, you start how God created, what he created, then you come to the fall of man, what led sin to happen, what, and then step by step, the investigative judgment, the 2,300-day prophecy. Now, they're just arguing. Okay, I was like, I don't want to be in that case. I said, no, you learn to be there as well. So, Sister Carmina, it was a struggle. So, 1996, to cut the long story short, a friend of mine, I was seated in church. Then he says, he put the Great Controversy book on my shoulder. He says, Mukaziwerengako, you should be reading these books. So I was like, what book is this? So I got it. I went home. I read. That is how it is stuck. 1996, when I read the Great Controversy, Sister Kerr, maybe 6 times from cover to cover. I couldn't believe what I was seeing from there. Especially, the first case, it is the destruction of Jerusalem. Now, when it starts from the Great Awakening, the Reformers, it exposed the purpose. I said, what? So that church is not a church. Hey, I was shocked, Sister Kerr. Again, I read it. Then I went to my mom with that book in my hand. After reading it for about 3 times, I asked Mom, what is the Sabbath? She told me, I knew that you would come with that question. I said, no, what is the Sabbath? She said, I can't answer you. I just said, Mom, I now know the reason why some years ago you said that you chased me from home for joining the SDA church. So your church was killing Christians. Your church was teaching us that they have power to change the Sabbath from Sabbath to Sunday. That church is Antichrist. My mom never said anything. So I kept that book and repeated reading it, studying it, reading it again, back and forth. Then the owner came to me and said, you should be returning these books. That's when you'll be given another one. I said, are you sure? So for me, when I heard people saying Ellen White, for me, I thought Ellen White is Great Controversy, because I thought that it was complete, because it was talking about from the destruction of Jerusalem to the earth made new. So I was thinking that it was completely covering everything. Then he says, no, you should be returning books, because if you return that book, I'll give you another one. Because I meant that I will never return that book. It changed my life. It made me now to understand what the Sabbath is, how to keep it. Then I returned it reluctantly. Then he gave me Patriarchs and Prophets. I was shocked. You know, when I did history, and then we are told of dinosaurs and everything else. Now, when I read the version of the patriarchs and prophets to say, when the flood came, some of these trees and animals were buried alive. So now I get to say, oh, we were lied to say they were dinosaurs. Yes, they were there, but these are things that were buried in the cooler areas. So when they exhume, they are able to, yeah, I loved those books. So that's how, from that one, he came and gave me Desire of Ages, how Christ came and died. Yeah. So after reading those three books, so when I was hearing people saying Ellen White, I thought it was those three books: Desire of Ages, Patriarchs and Prophets, then the Great Controversy. So I was seated in church one Sabbath. Then one elder uh, got his volume one of the Spirit of Prophecy, that big book. And then, like the way the other man did, he put it on my shoulder. I was seated in the front desk. Then he says, these are books that you should read. So I got the book. It was very big. I opened the books, looking at the font. I said, you must be mad. Are you sure you can read this book and finish it? This is too big with this font. They says, no. Those books that you are reading, because he saw me with the Desire of Ages, says, look, this is that one book is just part of these books. Then I was like, so Sister Ellen White wrote all these things. That yes, and then he says, no, that is just one. Then he brought volume 2, volume 3. I was like, then I'm behind. Sister Kerr, I started studying, I'm telling you. But the sad part was books were borrowed. I fought hard. 1990, that was what, 1998 or 1997, 1998. I managed to buy my own volumes from Riverside. The way I, Brother Geshom, is I sent somebody to go and buy for me those books. That's how he brought them. And I started now. Until now, I still have those books. I've never lost any one of them. They are still at least intact as they possibly could be, though they have here and there they are honored because of people that were borrowing them. Myself, I keep things neat, but people use them. But of late, it is Sister Olivia that has been using them greatly, and so she damaged one of them. But that's the story, Sister. That's how I became an SDA. So now, 1997, something happened again. We were seated with my friend. We used to eat a lot of meat. If it is not in terms of fish, it is beef. If it's not beef, sausage, just like that. So a voice came. That was in July of 1997. As we were eating, we were seated on a big dining table. By then, I was staying with my friend at his family house. Then the voice told me that you should stop eating meat. So I told my friend that, you know what? When I was eating there, a voice told me that I should stop eating meat before I even knew or read about the health message. So my friend at one time had converted to Rastafarianism, but his father was opposed to it, so he was forced to start eating meat again and to cut his dreadlocks. So what he told me was interesting. He says, you know what? When you stop eating meat, your comprehension becomes strong. I would comprehend and meditate about things, and like when I'm eating meat. So he just said, when that voice comes back to you the second time, then you should stop, because that is the voice of God. I didn't know what to say. So then August, the same like July, the same date now in August, God gave me just 1 month. Now again we are eating on the same dining. Then the voice came to me. Immediately the voice finishes speaking to say you should stop eating meat. I announced on the table to say, this meat that I'm eating is the last. And where about 10 people now, they laugh. You know where they know that That was the only food that was more available. Then vegetables were also there, but not cooked to appetizing, because they were cooked in a manner that they were supposed to be the accompanying of the other foods. So I was like, yeah, this is the last that I'm eating. So the following day, they tried me. They cooked meat, and I went for vegetables. Evening, went for vegetables. The following day, they were saying, you get tired. They tried me a carpenter. I said, everything I've stopped. I stopped just like that, Sister Ka. So these people said, no, he can't be a vegetarian in this house. What did they start doing? They started make the vegetables, instead of cooking them better, they cooked them in such a way that you stop. But they saw that I subsisted on it. I ate vegetables until finally they said, no, this guy has resolved, including the person who was earlier on encouraging me that when you become a vegetarian, your comprehension will change. He joined the bandwagon of those that were tormenting me. They treated me like 1 month. I was eating rape at lunch, rape supper, rape lunch for 1 month. But they saw that I never complained, and I started gaining in weight. So they were surprised. No. I think this man is resolved. Me, I just told them, no, the voice that made me to join SDA is the voice that told me to stop eating this. In 2001, the time that my mother was dying, that's when I came to know of the health message. So it took me at least 3 years again to come and know that there is the health message in the SDA church. So I was shocked when I saw that. I was like, how is it that God goes before me? He tells me, and then when I struggle through life and people laugh at me, that's when I find the truth. So basically, Sister Ka, that's how my journey has been. You are muted. You can unmute yourself and say anything. Then we see. That's my history.
Oh, am I unmuted now?
Yes, please.
Oh, that's so amazing.
Sure.
I was just asking, what was it you said they gave me rib to eat? Morning, lunch. I didn't understand it. Was that some kind of food?
Rape is a vegetable.
Oh, okay.
Yes, a leafy vegetable. Okay. Let me see if I on my phone.
Something like cabbage or something like
No, no,
that.
no. It's leafy. Cabbage is yeah. What like it looks like spinach.
Okay, sure.
Yes, that's yes. Let me just
It's all
try
right.
to.
It's all right. So it was greens, but it wasn't cooked with flavor and stuff. That's
Mm-hmm.
so, your history is so fascinating. And everyone's history is fascinating. It really, really is, how we first came into this truth and what struck us and things like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very, very, I'm very deeply moved. I like the moment when you were reciting the fourth commandment and then the
Mm-hmm.
pastor says, "Oh, wait, you were brought up Catholic," and then the fact that you providentially went to that school in Livingston and then you were exposed. So God, I think our history shows how God had special plans for us. Yeah.
Yes. I can't refute that one, Sister Ka. Even when I became for me to become a Davidian, it was the same thing. There came that was in 2001 again. Because what had happened was I started now reading different books. When you talk of those versions of the National Sunday Law, I read all those versions. And the
Mm.
book that I was now calling inspirational to me was Uriah Smith's Revelation of Things to Come. I held
Oh,
that book to
my.
I held that book to say, oh, it is a revealer of things, it is powerful. So for me, when I now find what the Shepherd's Word teaches, I can relate because Sister Kav, God made me pass through the rounds. I never skipped any one of them. That's why
It
when
sounds
something
like it. It sounds like you went to you know how we watch the Ferris wheel and it goes round and round and the chair goes way up high and the people are swinging and then it comes back down to the bottom. You kept going
Mm-hmm.
back down to the bottom. Yeah, going down to
Mm-hmm.
the bottom to pick up Uriah Smith, going back down to the
Yeah.
bottom to be in the baptismal class. The interesting part, when you move to the adult class, which was no longer baptismal, then you're like disappointed. And I felt that sense of disappointment. I learned more because my first coming into the church, it was when my son was in cradle roll. So he was like, what, 1 years old, and I was taking him to Cradle Roll, and I was listening, and I'd take home the memory verse from Cradle Roll, which is for the, 2, 3 year olds, for their mommies to go over with them. And then I'd go and I'd look that up in the Bible, and by that time, a woman had given me this set of the conflict of ages. She said that this person had passed away and that they had left these books to the church. And so they were older Conflict of Ages series books. And then, so I would look up in those because in that Cradle Roll handout little booklet for the entire year, it goes out quarterly, but they give it to the parents and so on. Then it would show the reference. It used to. I don't know if it does now, but it would show the reference in Ellen White's writings. So then I would read that, and then I'd start to get, because I didn't have that foundation of biblical stories at all. Nothing. I had been in the Baptist church for a time, and I had started going to that church because I'd been moved by my Jamaican mother-in-law how much the church members cared for her when she was old, and I didn't really know that much about that. I was so moved that the church sisters cared and all of that, so I started going to Baptist church. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You see, this is how God works. So, like for me to become a Davidian again, I didn't become a Davidian because I was studious. No, no, no. What happened was, we had the two pastors. Actually, by then they were just elders. They were calling them live wires. They used to preach, the two of them, where one starts a sermon, then the other one continues, then the other one concludes. So I don't know whether they
Mm-hmm.
were sharing notes on what they were preaching. So that
Mm-hmm.
day, they preached abomination, Sister Kai, in church.
Mm.
Yes, they substituted the story of Jesus with a man they were calling Abayas. I still remember that vividly. But before that incident, I wanted to tell you something how I met Brother Caleb in connection with the Uriah Smith. So I had read Uriah Smith and I understood the truth of Revelation 10:10, which he interpreted correctly, that the book being sweet in the mouth and bitter in the belly. Yeah, it was that. So there was
Mm.
this
Mhm.
elder Chama from Makeni Church. He came to preach at Chawama Men. After his preaching in the morning, he also conducted the Bible study. So he was looking at Revelation chapter 10. So it's a question. Say, brothers and sisters, what is the meaning of Revelation chapter 10, verse 10? So everyone was quiet. Then I raised my hand. Said, yes, young man. I was very young. And that was the time, that was about 1999, just before I got married. So
Mhm.
I raised my hand. Then he said, yes, go ahead. I started, I told him, no, Revelation 10 verse 10 is talking about the rise of the Seventh-day Adventist, I mean, the Millerite movement, and the book being sweet is when they understood Daniel 8:14, and then turning bitter is the great disappointment of 1844. So, when I was young, then he turned and said, where is the administrative elder? This is how you train children. Now in SDA they don't allow to clap, right? They said, but this
Right. No,
gentleman,
that's correct. When we shouldn't be clapping, we should be saying
they said,
amen.
no, 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 clap for the young man. So the whole church was made to clap for me. Brother Caleb was seated at the back. He noticed me. So my wife,
Oh.
yeah. So then we went on with a study. Then somebody called me to say, because my wife was coming from another church, it came to inform me that, oh, your wife will be is outside. She's calling her. She's calling you. So I stood up. Then the same elder said, young man, after giving such a wonderful contribution, you are leaving? I said, no, I've just been called outside. I said, oh, okay. But anyway, make it quick because you are the people we want in church. I said, oh, thank you. So as I
Oh,
walked outside, I found my wife to be. So we talked. Then we came together in the church and sat. You know, she was coming from other church, so she wouldn't just enter. So we came together. Then we sat.
mm,
So
mm.
the study went well, and then we were giving contribution like that. So after the study, as we were about to leave, Brother Charles Kaleva came to me and says, brother man, those were wonderful comments you are making, and I would
Mhm.
love I would love you to teach me. I said, no, I can't teach you. I don't have the ability, but I can tell you where I read. I told, where did you read? I said, Uriah Smith's Revelation of Things to Come. He was, oh, okay. But then he insisted, but I would love you to teach me. I said, no, I can just share what I read. But when you say teaching, that is too advanced for me. He said, oh, okay. So that was 1999. From that
Oh,
moment, Brother Kareva used to come to church. He never again contacted me, but we continued just greetings and stuff like that. No, nothing like, insisting that I should teach him. He never did. So 2 years passed.
but you see him again, but no, not at, or you never see him again.
We were seeing each other once in a while because he used to come to our church once in a while. So whenever he was visiting, we would greet, but not necessarily like him insisting that now you teach me like I made
Oh, I
you.
see.
Mhm.
Okay.
So now what happened now, that was 2 years later in 2021. That is when those characters now preach that abominable sermon where they are saying that they were saying there was this man, he had a son, his name was Abayasa, and Abayasa was a naughty boy. He did a lot of bad things. Then one day, Abayasa was stabbed by his father and he died. And then his father started saying, there's power in the blood of Abayasa, what. So I was like, this is blasphemy. How can the blood of Abayasa have salvation when we know that it is only the blood of Jesus Christ that has salvation? So after the sermon, you know the nature of the SDA, they said, the church rise for the closing prayer. I
Mm.
sat down. I was at the back, Sister Car. I sat down. And I remember the prayer I prayed. I said, Lord, I came to this church to know the truth, but this is not the truth. Help me understand the truth. Now, a voice again. Imagine people are praying. Then a voice came. I didn't close my eyes. The voice came and says, your prayer has been answered. I turned. Everyone was busy with prayers. I was like, who has spoken to me? I kept quiet. So after the main service, we walked out. So when we walked out, my friend was the brother Onesmus Mbewe. That one where you remember where we used to meet for studies with the Salem brothers.
Oh,
Yes, the one that I gave you pictures for. Yeah. So we had a bicycle, and we were coming from very far from Jonawa to Chawama Main. So he was with Brother Charles Kalewa. So I went to greet them, and they were reformers. Yeah, but by then I didn't know the difference between reformer and Davidian. So
did you ever heard of Davidian then?
by that time, I'd never known who a Davidian is, but I would hear people saying that my Davidian boy, they are bad, what. But I didn't know who a Davidian
Uh-huh.
is or who a reformer is. So they were when we were exchanging greetings. So everyone was like, that same one, it was abomination. What. So I just told them, say, no, for me, I prayed. So we are about the six of us now. Those that were
Mm-hmm.
discussing, Brother Kaliba, Brother Mbewe, there was Elder Nyirenda, there was myself, there was Brother, the other two, the other one was Brother Kanene, then the other one, I've forgotten the name, Stari. So in the midst of those, I said, but me, do you know what, brothers? I didn't stand for prayer, and I prayed to God that I need to know the truth. Now, God told me that your prayer has been answered. All of them, the five of them will burst into laughter and laughed at me. I said, well, so I said, I prayed, and then I heard a voice told me, my prayer has been answered, but I'm not seeing any tangible result. So that's when they burst into laughter. I said, no, God doesn't answer like that. It is step by step. I said, no, I know there is a step by step process where God answers, but this one was in the affirmative. He didn't say that your prayer will be answered. His word was, your prayer has been answered. So again, they laughed and said, no, my brother, it's not like that. So now, Brother Kaleba, he says,
Yeah.
he now turned to me and Brother Mbewe. After those other four gentlemen left, he said, brothers, would you like to know where I stay? Because he was also coming from a very far place to come to that church, because where he was in journeying, he was being chased because of the message. But where he came, we didn't know. So me, I said, me have no problem. So Brambeo said, but me have a bicycle. We said, no, we'll just be pushing it until we reach. So that's how we started. We went to Brother Kaleba's house. When we reached into Brother Kaleba's house, he offered us seats. We sat down. Then he went and got two green-covered books, the Review and Herald. He gave Brother Mbewe one, and he gave me one. Me, I opened at random, Sister Kerr. When I
Yeah.
opened, the first statement was saying, sink deep the shaft into the mine of truth. Then I exclaimed, I said, Amen. So Brother Mbewe and Brother Kai was like, what is it, my brother? I said, you laughed at me when I told you that my answer, the answer that God gave me was not like your prayer will be answered, but your prayer has been answered. Now, come here. Look, God is telling me that I should sink deeper the shaft into the mine of truth. So, brother, at that point, Brother Kaleba said, okay, brother man, he said, to both of us, me and Brother Mbewe, say, would you mind, maybe, since you have known where I stay, would you mind coming here tomorrow at 14 hours? That was Sunday. Me, I said, no problem, I'll come, provided, are you allowing me to go with this book so that I can be able to read? He says, no problem, you can go with it. So I started reading portions here. I was so shocked that there was too much truth in that book. I didn't mind. I went home. The following day, Brother Mbewe said, no, me Sunday, because of his bricklayer work, said, no, me, I'll be busy, I won't manage. I said, no, I'll come alone. So Brother Kaleb asked me, are you sure you have mastered the roads, you will still come? I said, don't worry, I will come. Just 14 hours, he saw me coming. He said, brother man, are you sure you mastered the road and you have managed to come? I said, here am I. I was like, I'm surprised at your mind, you're quick, huh? So he says, let us go in the house. So we went in the house. Sister Kerr, he pulled out those charts and he put them.
Oh, wow.
Zechariah 4. If I tell you that day, what happened has never happened to any person. We did 2 studies between 14 hours and 17 hours.
Yeah.
Even Brother Kaleba was shocked because, you know where I was quoting, I'm writing. And I said, yes, continue. He was shocked that the notes that he had, the notes that he had for the beginner were done. He said, the study has ended. I said, Then I asked him, why don't you show us these truths in the church? He says, okay, since we still have time, let us do another one. We went to Matthew 20. Before 17, we were done. So he asked me, brother, are you sure you understood what we are doing at 100%? So I said, thank you
you
very
had
much.
brought your notebook and you had all the notes.
Yes, I wrote. And even to this day, those notes that Brother Kaleba taught me, I still have up to this time. I
That's
have.
so sweet. Yeah.
So I went home, left my books, went to Brother Mbewe's house. And luckily, that's when he was arriving with his bicycle. I never gave him chance to enter the house. I started without a book, without the Bible. I started with him with Zechariah chapter 4. I spoke. He was shocked, startled. I finished. I went into Matthew 20. I spoke. Do you know what Brambell said? He said, next Sunday, we are going together. No problem. For sure. The following Sunday, I found Brother Mbewe was already there. By the time 14 hours was hitting, I arrived. When he came in, we did one study and we did Zechariah 6. And Brother Kale was shocked that alone I was fast. So now, before I came, Brother Mbewe was narrating to Brother Kale, like, that man surprised me. How? He came home, he had no Bible, he had no paper, and he taught me Zechariah 4 and Matthew 20. And that message is stuck in my mind, like you taught the both of us. So Brother Kale was shocked that, really? Yes. So when I arrived, he said, okay, since Brother Mbewe has an understanding of Zechariah 4 and Matthew 20, which you, Brother Phiri, you helped him, so we are going to Zechariah 6. So imagine from 14 to 17, we just did Zechariah 6. And we left. We were like, the grizzled horses. So now we are pestering Brother Kale. We will go to church and teach. He says, no, brothers, don't. So now I turned to him and said, Brother Kale, do you remember 2 years ago, you made fun of me that you wanted me to learn, you wanted me to teach you, and I refused that there's nothing I can teach you. He said, no, actually, I just wanted to start a conversation. I knew that you understood something in relation to Revelation 10 verse 10, but the book and the source you are using has not all the truth that you had. I said, but why didn't you continue? I said, no, I was giving you time. That's why you saw me coming. I was patient with you. So that is how I have known Brother Caleb up to this day.
Wow.
Sorry, I
Wow.
just wanted to make those things. So you see,
No,
the
you
voice
shouldn't,
of God.
because each one of us has a story, and it's just so sweet to hear it.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It's just amazing. I can remember the day that I went to church, and it was the Seventh-day Adventist Church in Burlingame. I had come to live at home with my parents. My son had just turned 1 year old, and I had left behind my husband in Brooklyn, New York, my stepchildren, and really I had planned to come to California and not go back, but it isn't kind of the way I left. But I had already gone to the Adventist church in Brooklyn, and they had a church in a basement, and it was a bunch of Caribbean women, and it was all very sweet and very humble. And they had rented this room in the base in another church. And I had even had my first acquaintance with the Adventists had been through the ministry in New York City of the outposts had gone down to the city and started these restaurants. So I had been going to a vegan restaurant. Meantime, I was working in a law office doing typing. And then when I got pregnant, I asked them if they know about a midwife, because I had decided that I wanted to do the birth at home and not in the hospital. The whole insurance that my the lawyer's office covered my insurance, but I went to one appointment and I just thought, this is horrible. I can't. I've got to do something at home. So they put me with a midwife that lived in upstate New York, and so went through with the pregnancy, and so then had the childbirth and everything. And so then they gave me a couple of books. They sent them to me. The Christ Subject Lessons, Steps to Christ, and Thoughts from the Mount of Blessing. And they also sent me a recipe book, which was published out of their own ministry, because they also had a lifestyle center where people could come there and get well. So I, always having been a person from maybe in my 20s, some friends had come to visit, and of course at this time now I'm more in my late 30s. I'm 38 years old, 37. But from my 20s, I had been really fascinated in the vegan diet, because some friends came and gave me books about how the dangers of meat and stuff. And those had been friends from college and roommates and things like that. So I had researched about it, but it wasn't until I got that the Seventh-day Adventists have really figured out how to do the cooking without dairy products, without meat, in a very nice way, and they have a tremendous history with that, and that in itself is such a testimony. And so I had also gotten two books, Patriarchs and Prophets and the Great Controversy. That had been maybe years earlier when I was working in Wall Street in New York City. I was working for Wells Fargo Bank. They had an international office. It was just like a 3 or 4 story building. And at that time, during my lunch break, I went out, and you know how in these business sections they'll have people giving away books and stuff. And so I saw this cardboard statue, Nebuchadnezzar's Dream, which of course I didn't know anything about it at the time. And then I asked, and they told me all about it, and they gave me those 2 books. So over the years, I had kept those books. And this is coming up into the time when, way before I came back out to California with my son. So, but I was married and traveled back and forth to Jamaica sometimes. So I didn't read it. It was like a very thick paperback, and the writing's really small. I didn't read it, but in sections. But I saw for sure that the Sabbath was on Saturday. And then I thought, I don't see any people worshiping on the Saturday except the Jewish people. They're always coming out of the synagogue, and they're walking up and down on the promenade on the riverside by the nice park there. And they're wearing their nice synagogue clothes and stuff like that. But I stopped doing my laundry and doing my grocery shopping on Saturday. I had never heard of Seventh-day Adventist, except when in Jamaica years and years before, because I had married in 76 and was living in Jamaica. My husband told me about a man that lived very nearby, and he lived by himself, and he lived in this little house. And he said that man is a Seventh-day Adventist. And he's a very unusual man, Then I remember one time he showed me where the church was. And then I thought it was strange. They were worshiping on Saturday. And of course, the regular Seventh-day Adventist church, it can be kind of showy. And even when I had been back in hello, are you there? Perhaps maybe you've gone to sleep.
Yes, I'm here. I'm hearing. I just muted myself just to hear your story.
Oh, bless your heart. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, because these stories are gripping, and so
Very true.
and so that sort of reflection of the Adventists had just built a church, and it was on this little road hill, this sort of high place as you go up over this hill. And when they'd come out of church, it seemed like I kind of didn't get it. And then even when after I gave birth to my son, which was in 86, that was 10 years later from the time I married, then I started wanting to go to the Adventist church because the midwives, they were such saints. And I had gotten through this birth, and they weren't even sure if I was going to make it. They were like getting ready to, one of them thought, well, maybe you should go to a hospital. And I'm like, no, let's keep on praying. And, so there was a whole nother story there. But it was I went first to that Adventist church. Now, here I've just met some Adventists, and I've kind of gone to Baptist church maybe over some years. And then when I and met with those Caribbean women, they were all dressed in white, and it was a very godly kind of, and all their children were under control. And then I thought, oh, maybe I'll go to that other Adventist church on Church Street, and so I went over there, and it I arrived, and I think the Sabbath school had already started. And the women were wearing high heels, and they had, lipstick, and the people were walking in and out of the Sabbath school with the doors swinging. And I just thought, eh, this is so different than the restaurant ministry. This is so different than the midwives. This is so different from the Caribbean women that were meeting in the basement of that church and sharing the food at lunchtime. And they were so sweet to me, because there I was with my newborn and everything. And it was amazing. And under that circumstance, I was married to a man whose mother had been he seemed to think that his mother, who was baptized, had been manipulated by the Baptist church, so that he was, it's like he loved God, and he had been a deacon in the church, but then he hated the church. And so all of this, and he had been, something of a pot smoker and a drinker and things like that. So there was a big mix. And in those days, that kind of thing didn't bother me. So, but what did bother me was the yelling and the violence and things like that. So, and some of us women, we just succumbed to those circumstances. So, in the sense of how did I get to the day that I first entered an Adventist church, where it was the Caribbean, it was more that culture in New York. It was very wonderful. He was telling me at the door, if you go to church, I'm going to kill you. And I was like, wow, and I was thinking, I better not go then. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I was with somebody that really, said some, how would I say, when people get high on pot, they say stuff, or, people that are drinkers or can be very violent or yell or mock you all the time. So I was in a relationship like that, but the violence had stopped because he was in America, and he knew that he could be put in jail for the violence. And so why I kept going back to this situation, God only knows. But so when he said that to me, my stepdaughter turned to me and she said, after he walked away, she said, "You're going to go, aren't you?" She was like 13 or 14 at the time. And I thought, wow, she's grown up around this. She's just telling me, and she had had a aunt that she stayed with and used to take her to church all the time. So she was probably more church than I was even. So I went. Yeah, and he probably totally forgot about it when I came back. So yeah, these things come out, don't they?
Yes, they do.
Yeah, so I left from I don't know if you call it broken home, but I left two kids, two children, one like 12 and one 14, a boy and a girl. And we were, I was their stepmother, and they were going to school in Brooklyn, and they had grown up in Jamaica and then come to New York, and I had brought them all by green card. And the way the home was run, it was run like a Jamaican home, but with an American mother. So it was a little topsy-turvy, because by the time that Errol was born, it became like Errol came as a separation, because I think the way it designed and came out, Errol being brought up out here in California, was such that was even something what his father had wanted. It'd be better if this child, before Errol was born, be brought up in California. This is no place to bring up a child. So Errol came as a
meaning Brooklyn is evil?
Yes. Yes. And the thing is that people can grow up in Brooklyn and be perfectly, well and nice, but that there are definitely so many advantages in coming out here, but it definitely came as a separation.
Mm.
It came as a separation, and Errol's brother, Prince, whom you've seen a picture of, and
Yes, that guy.
that guy, yeah. So after I left, within a year or so, he got involved with gangs,
Mm.
and his father said, I can give him what the gang is giving. If he, wants a car, I can buy a car for him, but he wants to go and steal a car, you know.
Mm.
So that got very sinister. And then he ended up in one of the worst prisons, Rikers Island in
Mm.
New York. And so the years went on, and then they deport them. When they finish their sentence, they deport them back to their home country, which Prince had left. When Prince had left Jamaica, he was young. He was like 6 years old. So he didn't
Mm.
know any of the ropes of the culture. But anyway, so his auntie connected him up by the mercy of God. She helped him. She lived in Chicago and tried to get people to connect up so that he wouldn't just be pushed around. So he was able to go in the countryside, and there's still a piece of land there that I have to work. I have to get the title for it and all of that. I have to work with it because it's supposed to be in my name right now, and then I should be able to leave it to Prince or to Errol. And I know the law office, but that's undone business. But the older I get, the more important it is. So that, but I don't see Prince as he's not been able to make a life for himself, even though he has kids and he had, you know. But anyway, the theme of the story is to do with the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and the family and the crisis that I came out of was just that I wasn't a praying woman. I wasn't a Bible person. I was just a hippie flake, you know. So living in New York was good for me because I got involved with working and learning word processing and learning computers, and that made me grow a lot. And I was going to church there. I was going to first I went to the Episcopal Church, then I went to the Baptist Church. I had a friend that he was a coach. He just kept telling me, go to church, go to church, go to church, find a job, go to church, find a job, go to church. So I lived on my brother's houseboat on the river there, and managed that, just a very small houseboat, and stayed there and worked, and then brought the family up from Jamaica, and so then it was with the midwives, and it was with those two books that I had gotten down in Wall Street when I was working for Wells Fargo, and that brought me over into the Adventist Church. So then when I came out to California, I started going to church right away, and the church was like a 12, 15-minute ride from my parents' house. My dad had an extra car there that he used to use for towing his motorhome. And so he let me drive that, and I would take Errol to church and go to Cradle Roll. And so I didn't look back. I mean, it wasn't like I was going to go back to New York, but I had a relationship. So some years later, Manley just says, I want to get a divorce. And I said, well, I don't know if divorce is the right thing. I don't, it's like, I'm not going to come back, but I'm being married is fine. I didn't say that, but that's the way I felt. So, yeah, so eventually he filed papers for divorce. By that time, I was living up in Truckee. So my parents facilitated a lot of things, but there was a process that happened in terms of how I could live and be able to afford to live, and yet at the same time be working, and things like that. So in those early years when I was living at my parents' house, that was kind of like the very first year that I was Adventist. So going to the Adventist church. And then because of the secretarial skills and stuff, I started helping with the church bulletin, and I would go down there every Friday and print the bulletin on their printer. And I would I managed to talk my brother into giving me his. He had like a traveling computer. It was made by Panasonic that had a printer in it. And since Manley had helped sell my brother's houseboat, and I don't think that my brother wanted to give the money to Manley, I think, because we were separated. So I said, well, how about you just give me your laptop? So I was able to do some business from my parents' house and start doing word processing for people when they want to have a document typed or something like that. And so then as I was getting to know a little more about Adventists, and we'd all get in the car, and Jan Markison, who wrote the National Sunday Law, was talking and things like that. We'd all drive all the way to the Napa Valley, which was like a 3.5-hour drive on the Sabbath, or 2.5 hours, and we'd stay there all packed into one room. Do you remember that? Jan Markison, the one that wrote the National Sunday Law. And the thing is that I was into Adventism, but at the same time I was getting burnt out the closer I got into it, because I was printing the bulletin. The pastor had asked me to sing at the church, and somebody was sitting behind me, said, "You have a nice voice. I'm going to tell them, to ask you to sing." And I thought, well, that's odd, because usually I've had an awful voice. But I think somehow my voice had changed. So I just, with shaking knees, I sung the song "Great Controversy." I mean, how great thou art, in front of the church. And by that time I had read in Christ Object Lessons, the talents. You have to use your talents for God, because if you don't use them, you're going to lose them. So I said, okay, I have to do this. So I just sort of moved along in sort of taking in through the Sabbath school lessons for the adults, and then also the cradle roll lessons, just absorbing in the conflict of ages, reading different things. And when my son was taking a nap, I was able to get a lot of reading done. And then I thought, okay, I'm going to save my money and buy the Bible story, so I can read that aloud to him and my Bible friends. So I got on a payment plan so I could get those books, and I loved it. Loved reading, and so I'd read, if it was a Sabbath school lesson, I'd read it in Uncle Arthur's Bible story series. I'd read it in the Great Controversy, and so that's how I was learning, and didn't seem to bother my mother and my father. I mean, they weren't going to church, and so it is that my son and I lived, at my parents' house. So eventually there was a guy that showed up at our church, and I noticed him during the maybe it was the adult Sabbath school, or maybe it was during the sermon, because sometimes the pastor will ask somebody to speak up during the sermon. But I said, oh, this guy he has such a nice voice, and he is so confident in the way that he's speaking God's word with such love. And there was something so truthful about what he was saying. His name is David Anderson. And so that particular day, I had sort of grabbed a half a loaf of bread as I had left home, driven to church, and I was with my son, and I remember distinctly thinking that day, oh, this is just a skeleton. What is wrong with this church? Here I go, and I study the Sabbath school lesson. I, take my son to Cradle. I fix this, vegan food, and I've got the recipe book now, and I know everybody that's doing everything, and they're doing it like robots. Nobody cares. Nobody's soul is into it. That is the way that I felt that day. And I got ready to leave in the car, and it was a small parking lot, so you can kind of see everybody and see everything that everybody's doing. And my son, who at that time was like 2 or 3 years old, no, I don't know, mommy, no, please don't leave like that. I was leaving. That was the end of that. The whole way that I drove home, he was moaning, crying, screaming, kicking his legs. In those days, you could put the car seat in the front, facing the front, because
Yes.
they have all these rules now about backward and all that. So now he's kicking, both legs kicking so hard, and it's so noisy, and he's yelling and he's screaming, and now I've already hit him. My arm has gone over because I was one of these parents that to spare the rod, spoil the child, and I really hadn't learned that from my mother, because my mother never gave me a spanking, but my dad he was strict, but he didn't do it a lot. But we really get the belt, So now
Yeah. I don't know
my
I don't know what was with the fathers of olden days. They thought beating, because even me, my father, was something else.
yes, if the kids couldn't solve it, then the father say, "Go, and I'm coming with the belt," like that. Yeah, it was. And I saw that especially in Jamaica, the harshness. Yeah, it was very sad. And also they had come out of the war. And I think that discipline was everything, and obedience. So, okay, so now I'm driving the car, and my arm is just slammed, now I've slammed him twice, and you would think that he would stop making that noise. Not a chance. So by this time, I'm just like, you know what? I'm just going to go back to the church. I think this is going to solve it. He won't be crying anymore. It doesn't matter to me. So I drive back to the church, and there's this brother sitting there, and he's kind of a simple guy, and his wife is Hispanic, and he brings his daughter to church every week, and he's just sitting there, and there's a little place for children to play there. So he's sitting there with his daughter's playing a little bit, and the daughter's the same age as Errol. So I go and sit down, and I've taken now the half a loaf of bread out of my car, and I'm thinking, well, I could just sit here, and I say, would you like some bread? He says, thank you, that's fine. And so I'm sitting there. So this brother walks over, and he says, would you like to come over for lunch? We have a guest. You remember that gentleman that was in our church, and he's here with his wife, and we've invited them to come for lunch. And I thought, well, this sounds grand. This is just what I need. And so I said, sure, I'd like to. He was inviting the other gentlemen. So we packed up in the car and went over there. And these were twins, and they had been born in Iran. They were Persian, and they had converted from Muslim, and they were, let's say, at the time I was 39, 40 years old, so they were maybe 32, 20, they were quite young, 28. And so I think one of them worked at a shoe shop or something like that, but they were caretakers. No, at the time, anyway, they were living in an apartment. So they invited us over with this person that was a guest in the church. So during the time that we were waiting we were going to sit down, but they were putting some things together. We were sitting in this sitting area in a living room. And so the kind of cordial conversation, where are you from, and how nice that you came to our area, and so nice to meet your wife, and things like that. And so it comes up that he says that he works in prison ministry and, helps out with counseling at a prison, something like that. So maybe that was his job and so on. And then he says, and I also do Bible studies. So then I said, oh, that's really interesting. What do you do Bible studies about? And so, Revelation and Daniel. And so I was far enough along then to sort of get that would be something interesting. So a little while from then, whether it was before or after lunch, the chart is out, set up in the living room. Then we got to look in his car, and he had boxes of tracts. And first time I saw the chart, I was absolutely fascinated. And this wasn't any time for a Bible study. It was just looking at the chart, because it later turned out that those brothers that were there really never accepted or were even interested in the message. So this was something that had touched me very deeply. So I kind of followed this guy around out to his car and said, yes, I would like to have some tracts and TGs. And then and I didn't know that's what it's called or anything like that. So I came home maybe with about 6 pieces of literature and in that TG size. And I had seen the chart. And once for some of us, once we see that chart, we're just like, oh, this is where we need to be. And so then I poured through it, and one of them was the trumpets, track 5, and I'm like, somebody has to be a genius to understand all this. And I said, this is so complicated. I wonder who these people are. And so by the time it was Sunday afternoon, because that was on Sabbath, I had called up the number on the phone line, and then it was Norman Archer who answered the phone. And it was a Ukaipa number, but this was part of a Mountaindale group. And he answered the phone, and then I'm just like listening. I'm like, wait, you're Caribbean, right? He said, yes. I said, Jamaican? He said, yes, I'm Jamaican. So I'm like, oh, wow. So I said, I'd like to get every one of these tracks. And in about 2 weeks, I got a box with every single track and TG, just like what you guys are doing right now. Yeah? Interesting.
Yes. Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, this story, they tend to remind us where we have come from, what we missed opportunities, things that we did to the best of our capabilities. Yeah, they are intermingled, married, stuff like that. So yes, yeah, God is so gracious.
And then as I was moving along through it, the fact that Brother Archer then had my, phone number, my, mailing information and stuff like that. And we didn't have cell phones, but we had a phone call. So then the question was asked, would you be interested in studying more? And of course, I was just, oh, absolutely. Somebody can come to your house and visit. That's fine. And so these 2 brothers, Brother Davis and Brother Kaliba knows Brother Davis. He actually there's a picture of Brother Davis with Brother Kaliba. And I think
What is his surname?
Trevor Davis.
Oh, okay,
Trevor.
brother. Oh, yeah, sure. I'm sure. Yeah, those guys. I think there was a time that they used to come to Africa. I'm sure. Yeah.
Well, yes, because that's why there's unless that picture was when Brother Cleaver was in America. Yeah, I never thought of that. Because I didn't realize until much later that Brother Cleaver had come over to Waco and taken classes then. And I didn't
Has he
realize
been
that.
there?
Excuse me?
Has he been there?
Hasn't Brother Khalifa come? I mean, I
No,
thought, no? Oh.
no. He's
Oh,
never been.
okay. Okay, so Brother Khalifa anyway, on with the story. Brother Kaliba had told me that he was the first Davidian in Zambia, something like that. So when those guys came, Brother Kaliba didn't have not big accommodations. It was it's sort of everybody in one room, or Brother Archer comes there. And Brother Archer was quite a soldier. I mean, I think he was willing to travel anywhere under any circumstances. And so those guys would come through here sometimes. And so because by the time that Waco had separated from Mountaindale, in other words, the Jamaicans, and it wasn't just Jamaicans, but it was others, but that they had made that separation was the year after. So that was about 1990, and it was about the time that I moved up here in the Truckee Tahoe area. Yeah.
Okay.
So then Brother Hawthorne, Brother Davis came and stayed one time, and the Spanish too. Just come by and visit, study a little bit, ask if there's anybody in the area that's interested in studying and things like that. But the way that happened so fast, I had been an Adventist for about a year. And so by the time I started studying the Shepherd's Rod, I didn't have a strong Adventist foundation, but I left out the baptism part. So I'd have these conversations on the phone with Manley, Errol's dad. So some of them pleasant, other ones would be like, I can't live without you. Why don't you come back, and all of that. But anyway, and my mother would always say, "Oh, you're a wreck if you talk to him in one day," which was true. But what happened is one time he said to me, "Why don't you get baptized?" And I said, "Why? What? Baptized?" He said, "Yes." Because now I'm going to the Seventh-day Adventist Church. He's telling me baptized. He's grown up in a kind of a more of a Christian culture, like how you grew up in. And whereas I think in America we were a lot more worldly. So I said, "Well, I'm not ready." He said, "Yes, you're ready. Talk to the pastor." So I went. I went and I talked to the pastor, and then I did pastor classes. I did pastor class. Yeah, so it was pastor classes preparing for baptism. So that was in 19 that was way before I knew anything about Davidians. So Errol was born in 86, so 87 we came to California, so that was around 1988. Yeah. So and there was no one else in the class. It was just me. So I'd go and I'd meet with the pastor, and so he had like a paper, and I'd go over a list of things. And then he also gave me 2 books. He gave me Child Guidance and Adventist Home. And those books, I don't know how it could have been a helpful mom without having those books. Those are very, very, I think every mother that has children and is going to the Adventist church to have those 2 books. So powerful. The Adventist Home and Child Guidance, which basically they're just taken excerpts from other books, but it's compiled nicely and everything like that. So, I went through the pastor classes. Now, mind you, I'm very excited now, and I invite my parents to my baptism. So they both come, but now here's a scenario. My dad quit going to church when he was very young because when he was, maybe 6 or 7 years old, his
Wow. Why?
I don't know how old he was, but it was the same church that we went to growing up. He had I don't know, maybe he was 12. I never found out the age, but he said he says, "I brought my Jewish friend to church, and when they told me at church that I couldn't bring my Jewish friend, that made me mad, and I didn't want to go." Something like that. So he would have had to have been around 12 years old, because that's the only age when children really start to say, I don't want to go. Yeah. But it was his Jewish friend, and then the Sunday school teacher told him, you can't bring your Jewish friend to church. That is bad. Isn't that terrible? Yeah. So my dad was born in 1917, so that must have been 1927, 1930. Wow. Yeah. So anyway, so then he didn't go to church, but then my dad got baptized after he stopped drinking alcohol. He went through an AA program. Then when Johnny, Errol's cousin, was baptized, my dad was baptized by sprinkling. They talked him into that. Yeah.
Wow. That's wonderful. We have testimonies, huh?
It's just a delight to be able to be a part of this experience of hearing your testimony and then sharing. Now it's enlivening up some things that my dad was able to connect with a baptismal experience, and nobody was forcing him. He quit drinking at age, I think the age that I'm at right now, 76 or something like that. So then he went to AA meetings. At first they go every day, then they go every week. So, and then he would lead out in the Lord's Prayer, because they would always say the Lord's Prayer at the meeting. The AA is the Alcoholics Anonymous. So that's very, very active over here. I don't know about there, but helping them to review, why they stopped drinking and to have a higher power. And then in some of them, they're able to actually mention God and mention Jesus, and it was based on a biblical thing. But so my dad would lead out, "Our Father which art in heaven," and then the whole group would say it. So they call him Cookie John. I guess he ate a lot of cookies at the meetings. But anyway, that was my dad's experience. Yeah. So the Davidian, that David Anderson and those tracts that I was given at that time, and then the contact with Brother Archer, and then the box of tracts and TGs. And I was at a time and a position in my life where I was able to read all that. So now I'm reading things about all you have to do is go to Waco and we'll sign you up, and or no, it isn't Waco. Just come to Mount Carmel Center. We'll sign you up, and you'll be able to go take the classes and learn how to teach. I was so in on that. I was ready. I was so ready, and I wanted to go so much. So I started asking the two brethren that came, Brother Trevor Davis, and the other brother that came with him was Dwight McCoy. He's American. He's an African-American man, and very polite, very nice. And he eventually, after that time, I think he lived in Mountaindale. I don't know if he's still there now, but you see pictures of him when they do their stuff. All six of them on their council and stuff. So and so I kept asking, are there classes? And as I got to know these guys, I realized that they had gone through the daylight classes, that's how they had trained, and that there were Bible workers. And I wanted to understand how the organization works. And so then I got the idea in my head that I was going to go to daylight. Now, mind you, I'm living with my own family that they're kind of secular. They're very nice. They're very loving. And I'm telling them that I'm getting ready to go back to New York. And they're like, oh, so with my son. And so now I make plans to go on the Greyhound bus because I don't have a car, and I'm definitely not going to go there by jet. So it's like a 2-day, 2.5, almost 3-day drive across the country, and get my Greyhound bus ticket. And I carry my luggage, and Brother Tony Hebert comes down to the bus station in New York City and picks me up. And we go over to somebody's house in Brooklyn because he wanted to meet with Terry Harrison, and then we drive up to Mountaindale. So that was sort of a breaking off from the kind of cushy life with my family, but it was also taking a position with God's word and doing what I felt moved to do. So I arrived there in April, and I took over the secretary position, not on executive council, but just a secretary in the office. And then I don't know, I soon realized that it was kind of dumb for me to bring my child with me, but I didn't feel right about leaving my child with my mom, but I thought I would have more time with him. But we weathered through that and came back to California in October. And so the daylight classes started in June and ended up the middle of August. So maybe 8 or 10 weeks. I don't know if it was that long, but we had classes every morning. We were learning the charts, and then I've explained some of that to you. And then the afternoon, we were doing work. Different people were doing different kinds of work, but my work was in the office. And so at that time in the office work, I was helping Brother Tony with the outlines. And for years, I kept those outlines because I helped revise them and then I had them on discs and all of that. And then now I just have the paper copy of them. And so it was that I came into the Davidian message, and I came back to California, and both my son and I, I don't think we were well. We weren't strong or anything like that. We hadn't been in sunny California. And so my mother just took one look at us, and she says, why don't you just go up to Sugar Bowl stay at the apartment there, get in the sunshine, get healthy, and, order your food from here and there and here and so on. So then over those months, I started to think about living here in Truckee. And so my family helped with that. They helped with my rent. And then I started to work doing medical transcription. And by that time, it was about time for my son to start going to school. So I had to take a stand with homeschooling and saying I'm homeschooling my son. So that is the Davidian entry level experience. Yeah? Yeah. So, I don't know. Did I lose you? Or maybe you've taken a nap. All right. I think maybe it's time to finish up here. Okay. So, gonna say goodbye now. Have a good rest. Don't forget the Sabbath, the Lord our God hath blessed. Of all the week the brightest, of all the week the best. It brings repose from labor. It tells of joy divine. Its beams of light descending with heavenly beauty shine. All right then, bye-bye now.
Don't forget the Sabbath, the Lord our God hath blessed. Of all the week the brightest, of all the week the best. It brings repose from labor, it tells of joy divine, its beams of light descending with heavenly beauty shine.